I think that's where it gets a little tricky for people. Like I said, scaling. I think that if you have some success and you're going into the second or the third one, if it's not in a brand, it's some, really thought out story, you're going to be finding yourself spread thin because you're not really using kind of your expertise to hone in on how to use those systems, right? Because I think even just from a revenue management standpoint, a 2-bedroom condo is very different from a 10-bedroom house, right?
Yeah.
And I see people do this. They want the diversity in their portfolio, which I am not against. I'm just not sure that you can self-manage the diversity.
My name is Rodman Schley. As a real estate expert, I've invested millions of dollars in vacation properties all around the world, and I've been involved in the valuation of billions of dollars of properties. I want to share my 35 years of experience along with vacation home investment tips from the top minds in the short-term vacation rental industry. Now, let's do the work. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Vacation Property Secret Podcast. I'm your host, Rodman Schley, and today I'm very happy to welcome Kim Herrlein, the dynamic CEO of Purveyors of Leisure, a full-service, short-term rental management company based in California. With a unique niche in accommodating large groups and properties with 6 to 11 bedrooms, Kim is involved in every single aspect of her business, from identifying suitable properties to selecting design styles, managing renovation projects, and curating decor to create unforgettable environments for guests and lifetime memories. Kim, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rodman. Thanks for having me.
Now, this is exciting. We're going to talk about a lot of cool things today, but you are somebody who really serves this community in terms of short-term vacation rentals and investors. You do so much, you put into so many people and put into what they're doing, give so much good feedback and education and teaching. So today, I kind of feel like we're going to be teaching people so much information. So maybe you could start a little bit telling people about your background.
Sure. Primarily in this hospitality business, it came from a simple yes to go check out some properties in Palm Springs, California. A good friend of mine, an investor in real estate. I had a background investing in real estate myself and vouched that I would get even with real estate. Offered, the opportunity to take a look with him. He didn't know at the time that I had a background in design business, an interior design business that I had worked in for 5 years. So I picked up some tools along the way in my design world. And we started looking at these properties and realizing primarily that the discerning factor about what would make us stand out would be a larger bedroom, bathroom count. Now, at the time, people were like, are you guys crazy? Why would you want to serve 10 bedroom, 7 bathroom properties to a group of 20 people? That sounds like a potential of a disaster. And it really came from our experience of traveling that way. Our friends and I, we used to travel in groups of 15 and 20 and travel all over the world, renting vacation rentals and having all of the concierge services that, became our own private resort. And so we really, a combination of personal experience, having some skill sets that, John didn't even know about, and saying yes. And a lot of it is the mindset of saying yes. I had been, like most people in the real estate industry, coming out of 08, 09, a little rattled. And I made the decision that I would somehow get even.
Yeah. Well, in 08, 09 was tough. We had the bank crisis and a lot of property values went down. A lot of people were losing their homes. There was tons of inventory, very different than where we're at right now. Very, very different. And I remember sitting in those situations thinking, will this ever come back? How long is it going to take to come back? When will things cycle and start to go up again? And it came back so much quicker than I thought it could possibly come back, which really just goes you to show that, when you look at real estate, it's so cyclical in what you do, and it always tends to come back and up. Now, I say that, and the world's probably going to implode, and we're not going to have any properties anymore. But, at the end of the day, it's one of those things where real estate's always been such a good investment, particularly in long-term situations.
I agree. And that did shock me how quickly it rebounded and made me have some regrets on what I could have maybe done to save some of the properties at the time. However, upwards and onwards is my motto. And we started purchasing properties that were 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. Typically, houses do not have 10 bedrooms. But we saw the potential to take a huge master suite and create 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms instead of one large room. And so that started really the redesign, and with the complete goal of heads in beds. And we stood out. We stood out because people were so afraid to host those kind of groups. And I'll tell you how we did it. I mean, Purveyors of Leisure was born out of, again, I think I mentioned earlier, accidental entrepreneurship. It started off helping design these homes and finding, a quality experience for people, but then realizing we really need to host these groups. There's so many systems in a home that's 5,000 square feet on 2 acres. There are so many questions, right? The booker is literally responsible for spending others' money and choosing the place that they're going to have this beautiful memory that they're creating together. Sometimes it's a milestone birthday. Other times it's a bachelorette or bachelor party. I mean, times that are not necessarily repeatable. And that really became our niche, was offering concierge services, hosting every guest. So when you come to one of our properties, you meet our host and you have contact with that host the entire time. We realized we had to expand and really work with customer service around the clock because of their needs. And that's where we were early adopters of virtual assistants and tech stack. And that's really what's allowed me to do so much in such a short period of time.
Yeah, it's amazing when you start, a lot of people get into the business and they think it's going to be easy, that you're not going to have to spend a lot of time. They keep hearing this term passive income, passive income, passive income. And when it comes to short-term vacation rentals, it's just not that way. There is so much work to be done, so many different things. It's not like having a long-term tenant. You're constantly dealing with issues. You're constantly getting tenants. You're getting inquiries. You're trying to get bookings. It's a system in place that it runs like a business as much as it does a piece of real estate.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest, not as much anymore, but I'd say initially, I like to break things into pre-COVID and after COVID. There seemed to be a real gold rush into the short-term rental vacation industry right after COVID. And we saw a lot of increase, obviously, in different types of travel. Obviously, drive markets were always popular, but more so. And then from our end, I mean, we had 14 properties at one point because there was such a need. People wanted to be spending time with their loved ones in a safe environment. And so we saw that gold rush. Everybody ramped up. We ramped up our services, and then it became the top. There was definitely a moment in time where we were like, we need to start selling off some properties. And we did. And so we kind of took the best of the ones, and we really capitalized on that moment. And also we started seeing, we sat on a few boards and watched the regulations start to shift, and places where I thought the ordinances were rock strong, were all of a sudden having, somebody maybe politically coming in to make a name. It's interesting what impacts, this particular industry, because it's so new. It's so new. And that was kind of our message to ourselves, was like, okay, we're not really sure where this is going. We have always looked at purchasing in unincorporated counties. I mean, there was definitely strategy to what we were doing. We also tried very hard to choose properties that had either, more distance from neighbors, larger property, larger land around the property as well. And then also because we have this, customer service and this aspect of, we employed minutes, the decibel readers, security cameras. We have a security team at night, lots of, like I said, using tech to really protect the asset and protect the business and be 5-star neighbors. Right. Because that's the big rub for a lot of people. And especially Palm Springs area is really, has it's tough. You know, when the government comes in and tells you that you can only have 26 contracts, the numbers start to not pencil. And I think we'll see some interesting sales in the near future.
I was going to ask you about that because I love Palm Springs. We were actually looking, and the fundamentals and the numbers were always pretty good in that area. But then when they started their restrictions on what they would allow and what they wouldn't allow, how many licenses and such, it just got really kind of difficult to do business there. And I know that you've got, I'm trying to think of some of the areas out there. You know, you've got the Palm Springs area. What is it over there by Coachella?
So that's the first property that we purchased we call it the Coachella Estate, and it's right across from the Empire Polo Fields where Coachella, the music festival, is every year. And that's the one that's on 2.5 acres. And we renovated and repositioned it as a 10-bedroom, 7-bathroom property. And actually, even today, we're adding now amenities. We're installing a pickleball court next week. We're adding bocce court. We're putting sand. You know, we always had a volleyball net, but now we're going to make it more legitimate. I mean, I think the interesting aspect of, I always say this to people talk about Airbnb, quote unquote, and it's like, no, this is a vacation rental destination. Like this area would not exist had it not 100%. Been for vacation rentals. Yeah. Right. And I mean, obviously things have changed and we won't get into remote work and all of that, but the trend, right, would not have been so strong and so quick here had it not already been a destination.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people like to come in, you know, spend their winters there. So, you know, I'm sure they would come out there for a month or two and try to rent it out the rest of the time to cover their expenses, maybe make some money, cover their taxes and such. But like you said, it changed and the regulations started to change. It became a little bit more problematic. But the thing about it is they do have to keep in mind that, like you said, that whole area was created because that's where people come to vacation. That's where they come in for winter. That's where they come in. So you got to get a good balance between the two. And I'm curious with you because now you said you've got some boutique type hotels also. And I think that's some recent purchases. Yeah. Now those are a little bit different in how they're handled by the city, correct?
Yes. And that was our primary reason was, you know, we basically, like I mentioned, sold a number of properties and kept the stars and looked into boutique hotels. I mean, obviously they start off as a motor lodge or a motel off on the side of the road somewhere, hopefully somewhere quaint and unique. And we were very lucky to find a fantastic property up in Northern California, about a half hour north of Calistoga in South Lake County. And it's just nestled in the mountains. It did take 2 years to renovate. It's a different animal than working with a residential home and reconstruction. It's interesting because to me, I thought, oh, well, I mean, it's, you know, 4 of this style, 4 of this style. And yet it's still 20 bathrooms. So if you've ever remodeled 20 bathrooms in your home, which is not normal, you would understand the potential issues that could arise. And so we launched officially the grand opening was September, and it's been going really well. Learned a lot in a very short period of time, but it was nice to see that so many of my systems that we had been building over the years we were able to, you know, tweak a few things and work with the same team that has been working with us for 3 years virtually. Obviously, we have housekeeping and maintenance on site. But as far as it goes, as far as there's no front desk, it's contactless. Your phone number becomes the last 4 digits, becomes, you know, your room code to get into your room. And so far, so good. I mean, we obviously still have, like I said, virtual assistants that are handling all sorts of questions that come up, and also on-call maintenance. But yeah, I think this is kind of what I see happening for more and more people. I think the combination of, one, we were already hosting a hotel size group on a regular basis, right? So if my 5 estates are full, that's about 100 people, right? And so all of a sudden, like the boutique hotel, the Fading Couch that we opened if everyone counted everyone went into every bed, they're looking at like 56, 58 people, right? So I had already been doing all this. I already had the security in place. I already had all of the technology to handle everything that would come up. And so that was kind of a no-brainer for us. And I'm really excited to do it again.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And you're talking a lot about virtual assistants too, which is fascinating to me. Are you offshoring that? Are you offshoring your virtual assistants?
Yes, I use an agency named Sphere Rocket, which they're incredibly supportive as far as training, helping navigate, obviously, the candidate and all the interviews, but then even replacements if that has to happen. But they are extremely fluent in English, both writing and in conversation, and extremely confident because they've gone through their system. So I feel like it's a combination of, I've been fortunate with the ones I have. We've been working together. My first one is my manager of the whole team, trains everybody that comes in, and she has been amazing. I tell people all of the time to see how you can implement virtual assistants in your business. Because you have to think about it from the customer standpoint, they don't know. It's not like their needs are being met, which is all that matters.
And quicker. Right?
Yeah.
Because you've got somebody who's on it like this all the time.
And they're cross-trained also, which is really nice, right? I have one that handles my marketing, but then also does security because they're in the nighttime shifts, right? So the nighttime is my marketers, but then they handle, I have them on security. So I have found a way, and I think I'll probably be adding one or two more, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, when we talk about what's coming in the future. But I encourage people to consider it. I think there's so much what happens, especially as you start to scale. I think, most people can self-manage 1 to 2 properties. I think when you get to that third, you're now you're also, in my opinion, and I strongly suggest this as well, is really find something that excites you, right? The avatar for me is the large group traveler who is the point person in the group, maybe the matriarch, maybe the point guard, who always gets the team together for an alumni, reunion, or family is like the head of the family. That's just like how I rolled for so many years. So to me, I was the avatar. I didn't realize it at first. Yeah. And I think that helps because it helps in your storytelling and your marketing. And you really do understand the avatar. And I think people are starting to recognize that there's value in doing a little bit of, instead of only looking at the asset from a financial standpoint, because there's a lot more competition. There's definitely, absolutely 300% more saturation in areas. And I think if I can tell you, if I had 4 bedrooms, I think it'd be a really hard time right now with the influx.
Yeah. You know exactly who you want to serve. You know how you want to serve them. You've gone in, you've set up your systems, and now you've got mastery, which is one thing that I tell a lot of people. It's like, if you're going to come in here, again, don't just think you're going to walk into it and you're going to have this passive anything. You got to get systems into place. You got to understand things. You got to understand how to be responsive when it comes to your, whatever might be your Airbnbs and such. But so many people just think they can open business and they're going to just be making money right out of the gates instead of thinking about, okay, what do I need to do? Because like you said, we're already getting pretty saturated. There's already all this big competition out there, and that's okay. Competition is great.
Right.
But you just got to figure out where you want to be in the bell curve. Do you want to be with everybody else in the bell curve, or do you want to try to master your systems and master what you know and become an outlier, to become somebody who is outperforming that market?
Yeah. And as we have seen, we've had to up our game. So the property that always, 30% returns, we're adding a pickleball court to get back to that number. Right? When we have the competition around the corner is a lazy river. So all of a sudden we're like, okay, all right. So now, 2 of our properties are adding pickleball courts and all these other amenities and pergolas and day beds and, a couple more like resort centric design. Yeah. So I think even when you do know, you still will have to you may come to a point where you're like, okay, I have to be competitive in this game. When we first started, there were, I think, 16 8-bedrooms in and around the greater Palm Springs area. Now there's 36.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that's just the way cookie crumbles. And I think that, increasing our amenities, I really do believe having the hosted stay, one, what does it do? I mean, we vet our guests. They have to be 25 to book. They know that they sign a contract no matter where they come from. I mean, we are so professional that there's no chance of actually a party.
Yeah.
In essence, they know that these people are paying attention. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where it gets a little tricky for people, like I said, scaling. I think that if you have some success and you're going into that the second to the third one, if it's not in a brand, it's some, really thought out story, you're going to be finding yourself spread thin because you're not really using, kind of your expertise to hone in on how to use those systems, right? Because I think even just from a revenue management standpoint, a 2-bedroom condo is very different from a 10-bedroom house, right?
Yeah.
And I see people do this. They want the diversity in their portfolio, which I'm not against. I just not sure that you can self-manage the diversity.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, for sure. It helps too. I can imagine that you get about $1 bajillion for the Coachella week. I know
bajillion, yes.
The rents are to the roof. Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Vacation Property Seekers podcast. I want to let you know about one question that I get all the time, and that's, how do I forecast my cash flow and my profitability when investing in a vacation home? Now, if you've ever wondered that, or you know somebody who has, you're in the right place. We've created a free training called Financial Forecasting for Maximum Vacation Home Profitability. Now, in this training, we're going to guide you step by step on how to accurately project rental income, estimate your operating expenses, and calculate your returns so you can make informed investment decisions. You can access the free training at vacationpropertyexpertnetwork.com. So if you're ready to dive deeper into financial fundamentals and maximize your profitability, visit vacationpropertyexpertnetwork.com. But I would think too, in the markets that you're in, these bigger houses are probably going to be priced a little bit high for a younger group that wants to come in and party too.
Absolutely.
Because you're in an area that's kind of prestigious and that's a little bit of a higher rent. If they're going to party, they're probably going to go party somewhere where it doesn't cost them so much to rent the property.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been very fortunate. I think since COVID, we've only had one scenario, and it was primarily people just taking advantage. That I said yes, where I probably shouldn't. I said yes to an engagement dinner, which meant other people could come onto the property without, having to stay overnight. And they didn't leave for the next day and a half till I had to bring the sheriffs.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, that was our last time. And that was in 2021.
2021 during COVID. I know that just funny that you brought up the lazy river. I just told my wife the other day, we're on about 3-acre flower farm in Colorado. And I said, we had to put a lazy river around the entire property.
Oh, I love it.
She immediately said no. So
it's very expensive.
Yes, I don't think we're going to be doing a lazy river, but I like the idea of maybe a pickleball court or something kind of fun. Bocce ball court would be awesome on the property too. So
like putt golf. I mean, so we're adding all those things that I guess in essence we didn't necessarily need initially.
Yeah,
but now
you're doing
we're finding
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you come from an interesting background too, because you're a designer by trade, correct? Interior designer, is that correct?
So I primarily worked on the business of interior design. My background is actually in psychology and communications, and I just had the opportunity to work and operationalize an interior designer's business. And she was and is, although retired, a pretty prominent designer, and I had access to so many interesting, beautiful, exquisite, unique designers and tapestries and fabrics and colors. I mean, just to have the experience that I had, I was always interested in fashion, but I have no technical training in design. I literally absorbed every single thing I possibly could from her. I used to, my tagline was, "You could do that?" And she would say, "Yes." Yeah, but she worked with a designer from England that, was responsible for 10 Downing Street. So I really saw the high end, the finest design, and was able to, fortunately, take as much as I could from that. My background, though, is primarily, it is in all sorts of things. I don't really know if I can say it's my background anymore, but I also was an event producer for many years, a music festival that I produced. So I have this like innate hospitable nature, and I think all these things play into it. I think obviously guest experience and communication, thinking about their needs, designing for their needs, both from a customer service standpoint and then obviously in the home. The hotel has been a real exciting time to really get the feedback. I mean, the one thing is with homes, the booking window is so much longer. Obviously, it's somewhere 2 months to 3 months. By the time guests come, I feel like we know them. We're getting them the right size roasting pan for Thanksgiving and all these, little details that we handle. But with the hotel, it's in and out, and we don't know exactly anything about anyone and why they're there. And we're trying to develop some systems to try to extract that information, so that, from a marketing standpoint to understand who our avatar is. However, I'm hearing such amazing feedback about the design. I really did go a little bit, when I took some risks and went with a much different design that I have with the houses. And it's seemingly paying off. So that's been exciting.
No, it sounds like it's paying off. You're getting people in, they're enjoying it. And again, it's all about that 5-star review. Do you market that when you're talking about your boutique hotel? So just to give you a little bit of background. So I've got a property down in Costa Rica. We've got 6 villas on a single property. So we got a 3-bedroom, some 2 bedrooms, and then 1 bedrooms, nice, beautiful yoga platforms, a nice pool in the middle. But in terms of booking, we can break down each of our units on, say, Airbnb, and market them individually. But then we can also go into some of the platforms and market the whole property as one. What do you do with your boutique hotel? How do you market it through like an Airbnb or a Vrbo?
It's funny that you should mention it, because that's exactly what we do. Our goal for this space is really for buyouts, to create a private resort experience. Their typical motor lodge or motel has a home, typically 1 2-bedroom home on the property, which is where the operator owner would live. We turn that into what I'd call an entertainment space with a chef's kitchen, seating for 22 people. There's still 2 bedrooms upstairs, so that if you came with, say, staff, they could stay upstairs, serve food to your guests. We have an outdoor area at the Fainting Couch called the Chandelier Park, where you could have, various events held there. And that really is our goal, to create this opportunity for people to have the privacy of their own resort. And again, I kind of had forgotten until I spoke to my aunt about this. And she said, "Don't you remember? That's what we used to do in the Hamptons. We used to rent out a place in Montauk, and it was only our families." And I was a child. I thought I knew everybody, but I didn't think, how unique that was. And it was a smaller place, and everyone was in, and there was enough of us to make it financially make sense. And it was amazing, because it was just us. And so you just don't know where things are going to come from in your past, where all of a sudden it makes sense. And I think that's really what I'm hearing so much when I read my fellow co-authors' stories. This is truly, we know real estate has been up there as an optimal asset class, right? And then you bring in this short-term rental world, that is the returns in comparison to long-term, blow them away. And now you have obviously more and more people doing it, and more and more people coaching about it and all, and you have what I would consider, like I said, an accidental entrepreneur. And my goal is to serve my community is to say, what do you like to do? Like, what part of this do you like? If you don't like the design piece, it's too taxing, basically outsource that. Delegate the things you don't like, because ultimately it's not that passive, as we know. And I really do believe that the commonality is that everyone is hospitable. I mean, I don't know if you've been to a conference yet with any of, with short-term rental industry, but I mean, it's literally like no one will take the last cookie. Right? It's like, no, you have it. You have it.
I think I took it. I think I was the opposite. I was like, okay, I'll take that cookie.
All right, you had the cookie. Now we know who took the cookie. But I think it is an important aspect that you start to recognize that people are finding themselves in the industry, and the people who are talking about it and training and mentoring people like myself are really pulling out interesting aspects of the person's background, right? Like for me, communication is key, and I know that. And how do I share that? Well, it's through my guest journey. The communication with my guests is critical. We over communicate because I know people don't read, first off, but also it's just in my nature that we make sure we all understand what to anticipate. So, and it leaves people with fewer complaints. And that's really the key. The reviews show it time and time again. Even when we have an issue, which is bound to happen, this is, there's just wear and tear and things happen and times you wish they didn't. It's how you communicate to the guests, how you're going to handle it, and like that we're as upset as you are. And, I really feel like empathizing with the guest and truly communicating has really kept us going for this many years. I mean, we're heading into our 10th year in the industry.
Yeah. Hospitality, taking care of people, getting those 5-star reviews. I mean, there's nothing more important than that. And I know that the marketplace we were talking earlier is just so flooded. There's so many competitors out there, so many other properties. And when somebody comes in, of course, they're not immediately going to experience the hospitality. So they're going to be looking at, what do you have to offer? Okay, well, I've got the pickleball court. I've got the bocce court. You've got those kind of things. But when they get to the property, that's when the real magic has to start happening, because you've got to really make sure that you are outperforming there too. Because if you're not, and you're not getting that good review, or you're not being responsive, or you're not accommodating their needs, number one, they're not going to come back. Number two, they're not going to give you the review that you need to keep that good status. And then you're going to be falling backwards there too. So if somebody thinks that they can just come on and put a property on, put all these cool things into place and are going to be okay, it just doesn't stop there.
No, it's a piece of the puzzle. Yeah, it's a piece of the puzzle.
And there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle.
There is. It's a full time. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, you're everything from obviously choosing. Let's start there. Choosing the region or the city space that you want to compete in. What size? Who's your avatar? We're talking about urban travelers. Are we talking about rural hikers? I don't know. These are really an interesting component that most people did not. That's not how they came into it. I can tell you that much.
No,
most people saw an opportunity, went for it, which was great at a time when maybe it was still a very good opportunity. And now the market shifted a little bit. So I think, and that's really why, I'm feeling compelled to really work with people and serve the community, especially with women. I see a lot of hosts are women. I see it as a way to get into the real estate game and provide, legacy wealth. And at the same time, hone in the skills of being nurturer, which is most hospitable people have that in them. And I see that, what starts as maybe listings, this is the focus of my course, is to really merge the two parts of me. I am also a clarity catalyst trainer, teacher, and it's based on a methodology from Stanford University called Creativity in Business. It's all about combination of, it's meditation, mindfulness, journaling, using all these wonderful tools to get really clear and help you with your actions. And that's the second piece. So my goal is to offer a combination of self-paced courses and also group coaching where I facilitate and really highlighting that you want your listings to go to a lifestyle, right? Like from like the concept of, okay, I have 1 or 2 listings and this, and most people, let's face it, they'll buy in an area they want a vacation, right? Or maybe near their kids' college, places where they want to be. And it can become a lifestyle. It can become a very successful endeavor if you're willing to look at all of the pieces of it. And so that's my one of my intentions for 2025 is to have all that help. And then lastly, we're going to launch our Always Receptive. That's going to be a 24/7 hospitality partner wherein we will offer boutique hotel operators help in all areas. I think that we're seeing, obviously, the trends moving to boutique hotels. People who have been in the game anywhere from 2 to 5 years seem to really be chomping at the bit to get in, which is a little bit of a bummer because it's starting to affect pricing. However, there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think people really, let's face it, and I don't know if it's because of COVID or if COVID just highlighted it. We want experiences. We don't want things. We're just like, we'll have plenty of things for the most part. Those of us that are fortunate enough that we have, but what we all desire is experience. And if you can create that for people, I think what could be better?
No, I agree 100%. And I always tell even my family, we're always about let's collect experiences and not things. Let's go places, let's be places, let's see things, let's experience things. And I think a lot of people are like that. And like you said, I don't know if it's COVID. I know that a lot of people started picking up and just traveling because of COVID, because our kids didn't have to be home, our jobs, we didn't necessarily have to go into work. We could get up and go. But that's where you had so many people who came in to that little gold rush you were talking about.
Right.
And bought, but they didn't understand the fundamentals behind what they were buying. And they didn't think about, well, is the market going to go back to being normal once COVID is done? And then I got a lot of competition and I don't quite know what I'm doing and I can't quite bring in the revenue. So I always tell people, it's like, it's one thing to be an owner. It's one thing to have this type of business, but you really, if you're going to be exceptional, you got to master it. You got to find mastery of the systems that are required to be really good at it. And then once you've got that down, you can be an outlier in the space, but you got to do the work.
Absolutely. And I think to a certain degree, you can't get away with it by default anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some people, they were coming in and quite frankly, I mean, we kind of couldn't screw it up earlier in the years because we had such a unique offering and willing to host so many people. And it was, I mean, yeah, it was a gold rush for sure. I think, like I said, the intention has to be by design and not by default. And I think that's where I feel I can really help bring clarity to investors that are either on the fence or whether to commit to their first asset or potentially scaling and whether or not it's for them. Because I really do think for some people, it's not for them. And then they get kind of sidetracked and all of a sudden, so say for instance, it would be like all of a sudden, if I bought a portfolio of 1-bedroom condos, I really would not know necessarily how to market to them, run them. Although now with the hotel, it might, if they were all in the same hotel or same building possibly, but if those condos were spread out, at one point we're in 5 regions and that was a point of where it was like, okay, let's take advantage of the value we've added and get out of some of these plays and shut down a region here and there. So that's been, we kind of gave it a shot. I mean, with all the interest in travel, obviously, like you mentioned, and remote work, there was definitely this moment in time where some areas that had great potential, I still feel were, near state parks and just more exploration, places that people wouldn't necessarily have gone had they not had that time on their hands and the, the freedom, right, to move about in that way. But that doesn't mean you can necessarily create a destination. And I think that's a critical piece that we've learned.
Yeah. Well, for sure. And the other thing too is you're talking about, you use the word avatar a lot, which you're speaking my love language there when we're talking about avatars and who's our market, who are we going after. But a lot of people don't even get to that step to understand who truly is coming to their properties. They don't understand. And if you don't know your avatar, you don't know who to market to. You don't know how to design the property. You don't know. There's so many things you can't do when you don't know who's coming to stay with you, right?
So true.
And
critical.
It frustrates me at this point. And again, this was a lot of people who came into the industry when they didn't really have to understand what was behind it, but now you do.
Yes.
Now you need to understand it.
You
now
do.
You need to know your avatar. You need to know how to market. You need to know how to get in front of the right people. And that's how you're going to stand out, or you're probably going to go away. You're going to sell your property because you can't figure out how to make money with it and you're frustrated. So I always tell people either go learn how to master right now or know that you might not make it in the marketplace. And that's not a mean thing. It's just, that's the way it goes in business. If
that's business. Exactly. Exactly. And that's why we decided to offer this always receptive service. We realized, okay, there are people that we know are smart enough to recognize the pivot to maybe the short-term rental boutique hotel world. And at the same time, do not have maybe they owned one or two short-term rentals, don't have necessarily systems in place at this level, do not have the tech stack, do not have virtual assistants, so on and so forth. And I thought, well, gosh, I could just do what I just did for other people and just be literally there, always receptive, right? Handle the coordination of maintenance of the property, handle the coordination of the housekeeping and the front desk, virtual front desk. And I think that's the other thing is people are becoming much more comfortable with contactless check-in. At first, it was so cute. We had a woman in her 80s and I happened to still be on the property. We were rolling out some rooms and, beta testing some stuff, but she was there and I was trying not to help her, right? Because I'm not supposed to be there. And I watched her fumble with the phone and trying to get, she had to fill out a registration form that would give her make her room, her code. And, and finally I thought, I can't watch this anymore. I have to go help her. And it wound up being the cutest. First off, she left the most beautiful review. And also she figured it out. It was in her. She really wanted to understand how to get the digital registration card done because she wanted to be current with today's trends in going to a hotel. And I just thought, all right, we're good. Like if an 80-something-year-old is open to learning, then we all will be fine going to a contactless hotel. For the most part, you're there for less than 12 hours sometimes, right? You check in 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock, maybe you leave at, 8 in the morning or something. But we're working on right now some really fun upsells, and we have a beautiful catering company 2 doors down. So we're going to work on breakfast in bed packages. We have a steakhouse that just opens up at the golf course across the street that's come back to life, revitalized. So that's really exciting. We'll have like a stay in place Sunday. So that's been fun, like playing around with some of these concepts about, how we take out concierge services that we have at the estates and obviously have it at a hotel when you're like, it's contactless. How could that be? Well, we can do it. We can coordinate it and create special packages for people.
And generate more revenue.
Generate more revenue.
Get more guests, generate more revenue off your services. And that's brilliant. We do the same thing down in Costa Rica all the time. We've got our private chefs that come in for people who are traveling and want that Costa Rican meal after a long day of travel, those kind of things. Those are wonderful things, not just for our revenue lines, though, too. It's wonderful things for our guests. Our guests appreciate them. And that's why they come back.
Yeah. Well, think of how nice it is. You're in, specifically in a foreign country. For a traveler, there's so much to absorb and acclimate to. And here you're not having to worry about potentially like the food in your, stocking the kitchen and obviously having a private chef. We do that with our estates. My husband's actually the private chef for our company. His company's top-notch chef services. And it's amazing because when I know he has, he's taking care of the guests and we're hosting a group, they don't leave the property ever.
Mm.
They're like, why would we leave?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is really hard to move 18 people around, right? How many cars and parking and finding a restaurant even to accommodate all of you is difficult. So it's really, I think the key is this really looking at the hospitality industry and what they do so well and why you go back to certain hotels or, patronize certain, chains, if you will. I do think the independent boutique hotel owner, though, is on the rise. I think a lot of people's personalities are excited about that, right? I think it's a unique experience because it's really I don't have a board to have to talk to about why we would do something. We just try it. It's like, okay,
yeah,
if it works, it works. Now we take it down, whatever that concept is. And that's really fun too, is having that freedom to create a brand. I mean, how lucky is that?
Yeah. Hey, Kim, our time has gone so fast.
So fast.
I know you and I, we could probably do this for another couple of hours because we've got so many things that I'd love to continue to talk about. Maybe we do another episode because I feel like there's just so much that we're leaving on the table today. But before we go, I do want to ask, where can people go to find you so they can tap into your brilliance?
Sure. I think the best place is my link tree it's linktree/Purveyors of Leisure, which is a pain to spell. And had I thought about it, it's a great name.
Yeah.
Had I thought about how many times I would have to spell it, I might have chose differently. That being said, the hotel is the Fainting Couch.
I love that name, by the way, too.
Is that fun? Yeah. It's kind of a nod to the Victorian. We do actually have a fainting couch in front of our mural for Instagram-worthy shots, swoon-worthy, as we call it. But that was a real nod to the Northern California Victorian style. So it's basically, I call it modern Victorian, real moody, dark plums, dark blues, really sexy stuff. So that's been super fun. And yeah, I look forward. I mean, I'm so excited about blending, as I said, merging who I am as a transformational coach with my expertise now in hospitality and design and seeing where that takes us. And then offering this always receptive service, I think will be a huge hit. And you can find all that on my link tree. I think that's just the umbrella right now for me.
Okay.
I am working on a new branding design, but to be continued.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely put that in the show notes so people have an opportunity to find it a little bit easier. Just one last question before we leave today. Your best piece of advice that you could give somebody that's coming into the industry. Maybe there's something, maybe it's the biggest mistake you made when you were coming in and now you want to share that, or maybe it was the biggest aha moment you had. But what would be one piece of advice that you'd give into that new person coming into the industry?
Find clarity on why it is that you're doing what you're doing. Because when something that you thought was passive becomes full-time plus, the overwhelm is real and you will not find the fuel, right? Like your why, your purpose. And I think that's a really important piece. I know for the most part, for a lot of people, it's just an investment strategy piece. But if you're going to self-manage and you're going to host people and create a hospitality brand, to be really clear about that, that's what you're doing.
I love it. Kim, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Let's do this again.
Yes, absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Vacation Property Secrets Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. By leaving a review, you not only support the show, but you also help others find and enjoy it just like you did. Also, please share this episode with somebody who could benefit from it. And if you're aiming to build a short-term vacation rental investment business that's based on strong investment fundamentals and not just emotion, I'd love to invite you to a free training that I'm hosting. It's my financial forecasting for maximum vacation home profitability training, an on-demand video course that's completely free. It walks you through the investment fundamentals to build and scale your short-term vacation rental business. You'll also learn how to estimate investment income and your operating expenses to build a projected pro forma operating statement and the potential NOI and return on investment for your property. Just go to vacationpropertyexpertnetwork.com to get access to your free training. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Vacation Property Secrets podcast.